It's early morning or maybe late at night. The room is quiet, but your mind isn't. Your phone is face down on the table. You tell yourself you won't check it. Just 5 minutes of peace. But there's that pull, the need to see who posted what, who's winning, who's talking, who's being noticed while you're still figuring things out. You scroll anyway. Someone is announcing a new job. Someone else is pretending they're healed. Another person is arguing loudly about something that won't matter in a year. And without meaning to, you feel that small, familiar tightening in your chest. Am I behind? Should I be saying more? Why does everyone else look so certain while I'm still quietly rebuilding? You close the app, but the noise follows you, not from the world inside you. This is how many of us are entering 2026, not broken, not lost, just tired. Tired of explaining ourselves, tired of reacting, tired of being pulled into conversations that drain us and expectations we never agreed to. There's a moment that happened right here, subtle, easy to miss. You realize that the loudest parts of your life haven't made you stronger. They've just made you visible. And visibility, you're starting to learn, is not the same as growth. In this quiet moment, a thought forms, not dramatic, not rebellious, just honest. What if this year I stop performing? What if I focus on myself and say less? Not out of bitterness, not to prove anything, but because something in you is asking for space. Space to think, space to build, space to become without an audience. And for the first time in a long while, silence doesn't feel empty. It feels like relief. Once you decide to pull back, the real battle begins. Not with other people, but with yourself. There's an urge to explain, to announce your plans, to defend your silence before anyone even questions it. Your mind whispers, if I don't speak, they'll misunderstand me. Another voice replies, if I don't react, they'll think I'm weak. You feel torn between two instincts. One that wants peace, and another that still craves validation. Some days, staying silent feels powerful. Other days, it feels lonely. You watch conversations happen without you. Jokes you don't jump into. Arguments you refuse to entertain, opinions you keep folded neatly inside. Even when you know you could dominate the room, you wanted to. And that's when doubt shows up. Am I growing or am I hiding? Is this discipline or fear? Stoicism doesn't pretend this tension doesn't exist. It asks you to sit inside it without flinching, because silence removes a certain drug, the rush of being seen, agreed with, reacted to. When that's gone, you're left with yourself, raw, unfiltered. No applause, no instant reassurance. You begin to notice how often you use noise to avoid discomfort. Talking to avoid thinking, posting to avoid feeling, arguing to avoid accepting. In the quiet, unresolved emotions surface. Old insecurities, unfinished grief. The version of you that still wants to be chosen, praised, understood. There is the uncomfortable truth of focusing on yourself. No one is watching anymore but you, and that mirror is honest. You realize how much energy you used managing perceptions instead of building character. How often you reacted not because it mattered, but because your ego felt tapped on the shoulder. Silence exposed that. It strips away the illusion that you're calm because you're wise, when sometimes you were just distracted. Now, without the noise, your impatience, envy, and restlessness become impossible to ignore. This is not failure. This is the beginning of clarity. The inner conflict of 2026 isn't about doing more, it's about resisting the urge to be pulled back into the familiar chaos. To stay quiet even when being loud would feel easier. To keep working when no one knows you're working. Stoicism lives here, in the choice to endure your own company. The courage to let growth happen unseen, and slowly something shifts. The silence that once felt heavy begins to feel steady, not empty, not isolating, but grounded. The noise outside loses its grip because the noise inside is finally being faced. There's a strange thing about silence. At first it feels like absence, like you've stepped out of the current and are floating without direction. But if you stay there, if you don't rush back to noise, you begin to notice something subtle. Silence has weight. It presses gently against your thoughts and asks better questions. Not how do I look, but why did that bother me? Not what should I say, but what actually matters. You start seeing life the way you see a room after the music stops. Small sounds become clear. Your own breath, the ticking clock, the truth behind your reactions. It's like carrying a glass of muddy water. When you keep shaking it, talking, reacting, explaining, it stays cloudy. But when you set it down and stop touching it, the dirt slowly settles. The water clears on its own. That's what focusing on yourself does. It lets your mind settle without force. You realize that many of your strongest opinions were borrowed. Many of your anxieties were inherited from environments that never asked. What you wanted, only what was expected. Silence gives you your own voice back, but only after it takes away the borrowed ones. There's a moment when you notice how little most arguments are about truth. They're about control, about being right in front of witnesses. When there's no audience, the urge to fight fades, not because you've lost conviction, but because you've gained perspective. A mountain doesn't argue with the wind. It doesn't announce its strength, it just stands. In the same way, your growth stops needing commentary. You stop narrating your progress. You stop posting before you've practiced. You stop announcing intentions before they've hardened into habits. You begin to understand a quiet Stoic truth. The most powerful changes happen below the surface. Roots don't rush upward, they grow downward unseen. Patient, unbothered by applause. And suddenly, staying silent no longer feels like restraint. It feels like alignment. Your energy stops leaking, your focus sharpens, your reactions slow. You're no longer trying to win moments, you're building a life. This is the kind of focus that doesn't impress people immediately, but it changes you permanently. And once you taste that kind of clarity, the noise starts to feel unnecessary. Stoicism isn't proven by what you say, it's proven by what you stop doing. In 2026, focusing on yourself won't look dramatic. It will look almost boring to the outside world. That's how you'll know you're doing it right. The first shift is this: not every thought deserves a voice. You begin to pause before responding, not to seem calm, but to check your motive. Am I speaking to add value or to soothe my ego? Many reactions dissolve right there. A silent habit forms. You delay responses not out of strategy, out of self-respect. You let emotions rise and fall without rushing to express them. Anger gets space to cool. Excitement gets time to mature. What survives that waiting period is usually worth keeping. Another shift happens in how you handle opinions. You stop correcting people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. Silence becomes a filter. It reveals who listens and who only waits to speak. Your focus turns inward, but not in a selfish way. You wake up and do the small things even when no one notices. You read instead of scrolling. You train your body without posting progress. You improve skills quietly, allowing competence to speak later. You replace loud motivation with quiet consistency. There's also a new relationship with time. You stop rushing to be seen. You stop announcing goals too early. You let results arrive before words. This protects your energy and keeps your discipline clean, untouched by praise or pressure. A Stoic habit takes root. You measure days by effort, not recognition. When something goes wrong, you don't broadcast it. You ask one question instead: what is mine to control right now? Then you act on that, and only that. No venting, no dramatic exits, no public lessons, just adjustment. Over time, people may say you've become quieter, more distant. They're half right. You're not distant from life. You're distant from noise. And in that distance, your mind becomes a place you can finally trust. This is how focusing on yourself stops being an idea and becomes a way of moving through the world, calmly, deliberately, without needing to be seen doing it. By the end of 2026, nothing about you may look loud. There may be no dramatic posts, no long explanations, no public proof of how much you've changed, but there will be a difference, and you'll feel it before anyone else does. You'll notice how little pulls at you now, how rarely you feel the urge to defend, impress, or react, how calm arrives faster when things don't go your way. Silence will no longer feel like absence. It will feel like ownership. You'll walk away from conversations that once drained you. You'll choose rest over response, depth over display. And when you do speak, because you will, when it matters, your words will carry weight, not urgency. Stoicism isn't about disappearing, it's about standing so firmly within yourself that you don't need constant external confirmation. You focused on yourself when no one clapped. You stayed silent when being loud was easier. You built strength when no one could interfere. And that quiet work reshaped you. So if this year feels slower, if fewer people understand you, if your life feels less performative and more intentional, you're not falling behind. You're finally walking your own path, unannounced, unbothered, and steady. That kind of power does chase attention. It waits. And when it's seen, it doesn't need to explain itself. Thank you.